Reatile Polaki.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. Hurrah.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yes.
What?
So quite interesting. We have had gentlemen craze this podcast. So far, three gentlemen. Yes. So normally, what I would do, ke wa bitsa bontate. Yeah.
Yes.
Even though some of them are not married yet.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
It's the title that I give. So, ha ke hinahana ntse ke re, okay. Ke tlo bitsa Reatile Polaki, and then it's crazy.
No.
Last time I think I did the same thing, and then
Yeah.
you told me, Hore, I should just call you
Just my
Reatile.
name.
Yes.
Yeah. It's weird. Kakwala. Also because I know you, so
Right.
it's weird. If it was a stranger, but it's you, so just Reatile is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reatile is not.
Oh, that just reminds me of my younger brother. So, that's
Okay.
just reminds me of my younger brother and all
Yeah.
my cousins. So, but
Yeah.
Reatile is just fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to our Sphere podcast.
Again.
Yeah, again.
Again.
Yes.
I feel like people must know that again.
Yeah, right. People must know. We shot last year. You were basically the second guest on our podcast, but the sound didn't come out right. So we had to reshoot. I mean, I think I take sound very serious, especially when we approach a podcast. I think it's very important.
Yeah, it is important.
Yeah.
But let the people know that it took us almost a year to get back here. But I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
It was a kick on my stomach basically, and the whole team. I was like, yeah. I mean, I thought it was the whole echo. So I mean, I was like, we're not gonna put it out like this. I mean, the cameras could pick up the sound except for the mics, but
yeah.
But anyway, enough for all the technicalities. The tradition now in the podcast is that we start ka hore re telle.
Okay.
Yes, so I would like us to do that.
Okay.
So what's okay?
Hamantila
Wa jang?
bohove
Wa futsela kang?
ka metsi a pula
Tella he.
ke theleleng ke le mokobong wa hamang kgelegetse tshwana maolosi fiefella ko buitswale se nne tswalla matlakaleng batho bana ke di o ja.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's clap hands for her. Team.
Yes.
Okay. So, yes. Last time.
Why nna ke sa o botse? Sorry. Why nna ke sa o botse?
I mean, you can.
Okay, o tswa kae?
Hamantila.
Wa jang?
Bohole.
Wa futsela kang?
Ka metsi a pula.
Tella he.
Ke theleleng ke le mofokeng wa mogadi wa motlalane. Malemane malemathita eske popoti. Yes, I only know it that much, but I know it's longer than that. But
yeah.
Hey, on the last episode,
yeah,
he kind of recommended a couple of books I can read out on the toe terms. Basically, we kind of even share the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Client. So it's like, well, I'm recommended the state library and then get some of those books. So next time somebody asks me this,
you'll know better.
I will know better.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Okay. Now, so what I kind of wanted us to talk about today is mental health, which is something you kind of specialize on when I came across your work.
Okay.
I think when I met you before that, but later on I knew you were on Sky Alpha basically. I think it was Thursdays.
Yeah, it was Thursdays. Yeah.
Yeah, Ofanaka those insights into the mental wellness.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would want to know the background, basically, even what got you into that space.
Tragedy, actually. I think tragedy because I think a lot of my friends in high school really had struggles with mental health. And it came from a place of, I don't know what to do. And then you look around and you're like, actually, I was also struggling. But the words to put to it to say, this is what's the problem, or this is what is wrong. But I knew that this can't be the life that's been, praised. Oh, life is so good. This can't be that.
Right.
So in a sense, tragedy from losing a close person at the time from suicide, and it was like, wait a minute, actually, this is real. But before that, it was seeing my friend struggle. One of my closest friends struggled for a very long time before she could even get a diagnosis. So I think that's what started my research into mental health and then psychology. And then, the rest, I guess, is history. I think I only just became active 2023 when I was really now being intentional about speaking about it, not just during, only in those certain months. I try to speak about it, have conversations about it with different people. But that's the history and the background of it. I have a degree in social work, and I'm currently studying psychology. So I don't know if I can say I'm a specialist, but I think I know enough, and I'm also still willing to learn more in the field. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Quite interesting, because I think topic mental health, especially, I think, well, inside of the country, I would say, but like in a far-fetched for a couple of years. But I think in recent years, I feel like Kibone again a little bit of attention. So I mean, how do you say it? Basically, in people and how they view it.
It depends on where you are. I have noticed that Maseru, like urban areas, urban areas are doing better in having the words to identify what mental health is, and knowing what mental illness is, or just having an idea. The urban areas do have a good sense. Young people especially have a good sense of, young and middle-aged people have a good sense of what mental health is, what mental illness is. We do struggle and see, I think the older generation doesn't exactly understand it yet. But I think what I've also noticed that they're so willing to understand. I know it's not everybody and every elderly person who is willing to understand or doesn't understand. Some people are doctors, so they do understand. But I found that, I think because they lived in a different time, for them it doesn't make sense to even think about it. To them it doesn't register. But on the bright side of them, I've noticed that when you explain something to them and they understand, they can relate it to themselves. I had an experience, I think this was 2023. We were having a talk at a church, and this lady raised her hand up and she was like, oh, I felt those symptoms that you're describing before. And I was like, yeah, that is anxiety. She just didn't have the words to put to it, and also how to cope with it. And so I think that's, I think the thing that gives me hope with that generation in particular is that when you give them the words and allow them, the space to be able to ask questions and then apply it on themselves or their neighbors or their kids, usually I've seen a change. I've seen a change in how they view things, and them actually being curious to know more and how they can help. I think that's the greatest thing about that generation, is that when they finally do understand what is going on and the severity of it, hangata, they are the first person to ask, so what do we do?
Yeah, right.
You know, with youth, I think we still have a disconnect between knowing and then getting help, right? And also, I think we know, yes, but we know the ones that we see on TV. You know how there's series and movies that show like this glorified version of mental illness.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen most, or at least in my generation. That's what a lot of us first saw mental health as.
Yeah, right.
You know, this glorified, thing. And then you'll have a conversation with somebody. It's like, oh my God, I like a psycho so much. I like my girls a little crazy,
Right, yeah.
And it's because we have this glorified idea of what mental health and mental illness is and looks like, which is why we struggle to reach out or struggle to support people, because mental illness doesn't look the way it looks on TV. It
Right.
doesn't always look that,
Right.
glamorized and fancy, It is actually very debilitating. And a lot of times, which is said among young people, we find that people are like, yeah, mental health, until it's severe, until somebody hasn't taken a shower in weeks because they're depressed, or they haven't cleaned themselves up. Or they've been banking school, or they've done some impulsive decisions because they're in a manic stage. Then people are like, side eye. And so we still have that disconnect as to what does mental illness look like. And if we remain to just glorify it and, make it a quote unquote trend, then we're just increasing the stigma, because we're not going to allow the people who are like having the severe forms, we're not giving them the justice to be able to come up and say, hey, this is what I'm going through, because we want to put a face to what mental illness looks like. And so that is just the different nuances of each generation. But generally, I think young people I think the kids are all right. The kids are all right. It's harder, especially younger children. It's harder for them, social media, technology, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, I think now we kind of dived into that topic. I would want to know, basically, simply if we were to describe what actually mental health and mental illness really is. Can you guide us through that?
Okay, when we speak about mental health, a state of well-being, right? You're not sick, you're good. And this is the state of well-being that allows you to function every day. And so a person who's mentally healthy, it'll fapana according to the society you're in, generally. Because what it means to be a fully functional person, as a Mosotho man, differs from what it means to be a fully functional American middle-class woman, right? And it also differs from how to live urban versus rural. But we can acknowledge, okay, mental health is a state of well-being that allows you to fully function and participate in society. So you're healthy. Well-being, we mean emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally too. So we're not just talking about one aspect. We're even taking into consideration your behavior, your emotions. Do these things come together proper to now allow you to be a functional person in society?
Right.
That is where we are.
Okay.
Now, mental illness, kibukudi, right? Kibukudi, it's a disorder, something, it's right, behaviorally, emotionally, mentally, you're not doing okay, right? And so there's that distinction. Every time we talk about mental health, we're just talking about your day-to-day, how are you functioning? Are you good? Are you coping with life? I think that's the big one. Are you coping with life?
Yeah.
In the end, mental illness, the doctor mohlomi or your psychologist will diagnose you. There's different resources that are used to diagnose people. There's one that is published by the World Health Organization. I just forgot the name. And then there's a DSM. The DSM is widely used, I think, all over the world. I think now we're at DSM-5 text revision. So a newer one, which I think was published 2017. I'm not sure. But it's recent, it's fairly recent.
Right.
And so the DSM has different criteria. Or if you meet certain criteria, then we can diagnose you with general anxiety disorder. If you meet certain ones, we can diagnose you with depressive disorder, bipolar or ADHD, whichever. You can look, okay, and it's a very clear manual also. But yeah, that's essentially the simplest way I can describe the differences. You take care of your mental health so that we can at least try, to avoid mental illness. You take care of your mental health to be healthy. The same way, or you exercise. You exercise because if you exercise frequently, you reduce your chances of cardiovascular diseases or like diabetes or whatever, right? Keep yourself healthy and your bones moving,
Right.
And so it's pretty much the same thing. We tell you to meditate and talk to somebody and journal and exercise to say, let's keep our brains moving and fresh. And then now when you're diagnosed, we'll tell you go to therapy and take your medication. If your doctor says you need to take medication, take your medication. To treat this side. This side, we're trying to keep you just run-of-the-mill, healthy, able to cope with life, because life be lifing, hey? Yeah.
Right. So now, the when I get to think about the kind of perception, you talked about people with mental illness in the urban areas approach slightly different basically when we look into the rural areas, because I think a little bit back without knowing let's say ke motho a sa le moholo wa mme o se tla uka o so the wa lawyer, maybe because Annalyn, that mental illness, she has gone through a lot, she has been through a lot in life, and then when that strikes in, it's about that somehow abnormal, and then people, then they end up saying but honestly, I think now I kind of understood it when I saw somebody who's close to me. I know, or this person, I wouldn't even say or anyway, I know them personally, that close to me. Then outwardly, when people look at it, yes, they'll be saying this. But people are somebody who is close, way born in a different perspective. In a different light. So now, what can you say on that note?
How we view mental health is rooted in a lot of things. It's for, and I'm gonna speak in the context ya Lesotho specifically. A lot of it is rooted in superstition, and some of it is rooted in the colonization. So it's rooted in a lot of things that have changed the way that we see mental health. Because if you read up on Mohlomi, right, everybody knows Mohlomi, the advisor, right? And if you read up the way he approached mental health, right, and you realize he treated them like people, right? And a lot of the times when you reach out to traditional healers, they still maintain, right? Yes, we approach it in a way that, okay, mental illness may be a meeting of like, something in the spiritual realm is wrong. But even the way we approach people, it was never from a place of stigma. Botho ba hae bo ne ntse bo setse. And so with the changing of culture, as culture evolves and changes, we also change how we view people, right? And this could be based on a lot of things. So it's partly is based on colonization and how we came to be colonized through religion and so that has really changed how we view people who are mentally ill. We view them like there's something wrong, right? Demons, and they'll try all sorts of things.
Then why is that, especially in ka perspective of your religion specifically?
I think this might be controversial. I think the West hasn't had the greatest track record in treating mental health. And so with colonization, we imported those beliefs too, right? And it hasn't been the healthiest, right? It hasn't been the healthiest ways. The way that we've treated mental illness has been from a place of also segregation, and it's an interconnected thing because even our spiritual beliefs has been conflated with mental illness and then mental illness. And so with people who are just coming in and don't know what is going on, they are going to call you crazy because you're straying away from their normal, which I think is pretty much how it is. We took Western ideas of what it means to be normal and we imported them and what it means to be abnormal. And if we're using a Eurocentric view of things, then you are going to definitely view it the way they view it. And if normalcy for a white middle-class man is like this, right? And then they come missionaries or explorers or whoever, and you're not doing that, what is it going to say? To them, you're abnormal.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Right.
And now let us remember that for Africa, those are how the first traditional schools came. And if people are teaching you that this is wrong, and you've been taught by everybody that this is wrong, and your grandma was taught that, your father was taught that,
Right.
it just cascades down and becomes literally how we view things. Which is why I think I've become so interested in viewing mental illness from an African standpoint, because it's different. It's different, and you can still attach humanity to that person. So, yeah, it's everything. This is going to sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist tonight, but for real, everything is somehow interconnected.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's very hard for people to unlearn the things that we've been taught and the things that for all intents and purposes have been proven to be right, right? Because we like to seek out the things that confirm our biases.
Yeah.
And so when you've been taught those things, you go around your life seeking things and looking at things in a way that confirms what you've been taught.
Yeah.
So unlearning that, it's not going to be easy. But I think with technology and more Africans writing and researching in the area, psychology, I think we can get somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are getting somewhere, I believe.
Yeah.
One thing that I discover as I grow is the power of perception. I think perception is one of the, maybe I might say it's underrated. In life, holistically,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter now what section of what, but the power of perception is one of the greatest things that it's so insanely powerful. Like the beliefs I hold about a certain idea, they are the ones that dictate how I conduct myself, how
Yeah.
I see things. Basically, they run my world. Basically,
Yeah.
everything that I was taught, it becomes my world now. It becomes. God, I don't know the other world except that, and quite interesting. If this idea has been passed down from our great grandfathers, and then in Zetowaje, it ended up being like a norm. It ended up being like it's like if we can create a culture here of abnormal people, we can say the abnormal people. If we can carry that for quite some time, that is going to be a normal. That is going to be a norm.
Yeah.
It's going to be something here long we like. This is the standard. If you are not doing this, then you are abnormal.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it in so many aspects of my life, and I'll be like, wow, the power of perception is so insanely great.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Perception shapes everything, really, because it is influenced by a lot of things. The country you're growing up in, how you were raised, the information you're consuming as you grow, your experiences.
Yeah.
You know, the things that you experienced before will influence how you see things now.
Yeah.
And so this is why changing perceptions when it comes to mental health is like the first step that you have to take.
Yeah.
You have to change how we view mental illness and mental health. And how we even speak about it. I think in the past year, I've come to learn how much language holds power, right? In the things that we say. Using certain language perpetuates stigma, and using certain other languages makes things better.
Yeah.
Language holds a lot of power because it allows you to it gives thought, it gives like tangibility, like something tangible to an idea, to something that is out there. And so when we use words, you know, right?
Yeah.
Ka mohlomi o tla re spell sepetlele sa mahlanyeng.
Yeah.
You know, speaker se khomme.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you know, we use it in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, right.
But when we talk about mental health, I try not to say mohlomi ke sepetlele sa mahlanyeng, right? Ke sepetlele sa bokudi ba kelello,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You see the difference in that.
Right.
This one says something is inherently wrong.
Yeah, wrong
right?
about that, yeah.
And how motho wa kula, we
Yeah.
understand how kula o tlameha o ye ngakeng,
Yeah,
right? You have to
yeah.
go get help. How kula, we don't tell people who have cancer to just suck it up, right?
Right.
Because we do understand that motho no wa kula, their body is going through something.
Yeah, right.
In the same way, mentally you're going through something and you need to go have right? And so the words that we use can make things worse and have even more damaging perceptions if we're not careful about the words that we use. Recently on Twitter, there was discourse around whether we should say, you know, committed suicide or died by suicide, right? And other people didn't understand why we have to say died by suicide as opposed to committed suicide,
Yeah,
right? Because there's been, in a lot of countries, suicide is illegal. Yes, if you attempt, you will go to jail if you survive. It's illegal.
Right.
It's been tied to illegalness. 1, 2, we are tying morality to something that is not, that doesn't have a moral compass. You know, I have a moral compass because I am thinking, I'm feeling, but an act doesn't have morality, especially when it's a result of something.
Yeah.
Right? So when we say committed suicide, you're just adding on to those negative connotations, and it's easier to judge somebody and be like, you know, weak,
right.
when you put it passively, say committed suicide, in active voice, and say committed suicide, you put the blame on that person, right? When you say died by suicide, we acknowledge that suicide is often a result, mental illness, often is enough people can't cope, right? And we're allowing them grace to say, this is but a result. If they could cope with the situation, they wouldn't have chosen this option. Nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, you know what? Life is, I'm coping, everything is fine, but peace. No, it's because something is wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Something is not quite right.
Yeah.
So you say committed suicide. You're opening up also the place for this person to be judged, to be crucified, and with no empathy for what that person went through. Died by suicide we're saying this is the result of what this person went through. It was hard, and what are we doing? Right? It opens conversation for changing also perceptions again, right? We say committed suicide, and then people immediately think they have the right to bash the daily, the person who has passed on. It gives people avenue to say, "Achifelena, does he know? After the which, they're going to hell, right? Do they know that is wrong, weak, or all of those words?" And easy to do so because weakens, right?
Yeah.
Weakens. Essentially, with that, we're removing the truth from the situation in that there's problems. There's problems that we're not going to solve by blaming the person who's not here. Somebody else is still going to die by suicide if we're not solving the chaos and the sadness and the distress that is plaguing society, and not making it easier for people to access mental health services. We're not making it easier. We're just making people who also feel suicidal more ashamed, because suicidality, the feelings are there, but you haven't exactly went on the other side to say, okay, I'm tempting. Yeah, but you've attempted and you haven't succeeded. You're bringing more shame. And more shame means that that person is not going to seek out help. That person is going to say, then what's the point? If I'm already weak, then what's the point?
I think it's as you're explaining it, it kind of gives me this an analogy. Yeah, a person, how could we chase?
Yeah.
We cannot blame the car. We are not going to say, basically, it's the person inside driving the car. So, break it down like this. It's like when somebody even commits suicide, it's something inside pulling their strings. They are just at the moment, they are just the body. It's being moved around here and there. Basically, manipulate whatever the situation, the illness, that we are talking about. And to blame the person, I think it's a bit of a stress, honestly.
And even if it's like not necessarily like something, puppet controlling, like puppet, but there are factors that push people to that decision. I think we neglect so much the factors surrounding that. We never dissect right? When you say, I feel like the greatest analogy I can have, how homoto onakula, right? Onakula. Oh, mama, so what happened? Onakula, onanale ABC, stage 4 terminal cancer, whatever. Now we have gotten to the factor what caused this. And I think a lot of times with suicide we tend to look at the result. The result here that our loved one is gone. Sad. It's sad. The grief is immense, right? But often enough, with the shame that comes with it, we never even stop to say, actually, but what happened, And so I think saying died by suicide also gives gives a face to something.
Yeah.
It gives a cause of death, right? Or this person died by suicide. This is,
Yeah.
the cause of the death. And now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
but why?
Yeah. Why
Then
did
we
that
can
happen?
investigate.
Yeah.
I think we tend to focus on the result because it's heartbreaking. We can acknowledge that it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Especially a young person, right? It's heartbreaking.
Right.
But we also have to now, it's heartbreaking, but how do we at least try and prevent this from happening again? We're not going to do that if we're shaming people who feel like they're out of options. We're not doing anything. What we're doing is pushing people to that decision because we're not giving them the platform to say, yo, guys, I'm struggling and I'm struggling and this is what I'm feeling. So that we can say, how can we help you?
So basically, how do we then approach those type of people who be feeling like that? Because I think when we don't have enough knowledge on the approach, na gongwe instantly na gongwe ka bona motho a tena if a etsa ntho tse leng gore yes we call them abnormal, we be like hi motho wa tena wa go sokodisa and this and this and that, and we are people na gongwe, let's say o dula le ene and then o etsa dintho tseno maybe for the first time. I mean, even though mogata no matter what, but like for the first time you try, for the second time, and then na gongwe ka nna wa iketsisa or something like that, and we end up being the ones belong push them there without even realizing. And we don't know how to sometimes we might not know how to approach things like that.
Yeah. I think the first things first, we need to acknowledge it's hard living with somebody who has a mental illness. It's hard. And just because it's hard doesn't mean that you don't love that person, right? Or you don't care about them.
Right.
It's just challenging. Like, let's be honest. It's challenging. It's not easy, right? It's not easy dealing with somebody with suicidal thoughts. It's not easy dealing with somebody has a diagnosed mental illness, it's not easy, right? We need to get out of the way, and I want people to know that it's okay to feel challenged and tired and frustrated because it is a challenging period of time to be in, right? But I think the first thing we can do, research aside, is empathy. I think, sympathizing, empathy, putting yourself in another person's shoes and seeing things from their perspective. I think empathy holds space for kindness. Because you're kind to someone because you understand, right? And maybe you're not going to understand fully because you're not going through it, right? And you've never went through it. But when you change how you view that person and be like, okay, this person in their head, bona situation, seeing things from another person's perspective allows you to be kinder also to them and hold space for them. Oh, man, I get it. And it also will remind you when something happens or that person does something that is going to frustrate you, and you're like, this is not who they are, right? This is what they're going through. And being able to separate that will allow you to still remember, okay, this person, regardless of whether they're going through the worst depressive phase, is still that person that you love, right? I think that's where it starts. And also being don't judge. I don't know what people believe in out there. Hey, you'll be judged with your higher power. Don't judge. Don't judge somebody, because what you're doing is you're saying you're doing something wrong, right? And you cannot tell somebody they're doing something wrong when they're unwell. What you're saying, essentially what you're saying, is that there's something wrong with them for them to be in that position. No. Then you're not helping. So I think be empathetic to the person's, what they're going through, and don't judge. I think those are the two ones. Hold a space for them to be able to come to you and say, hi, Geshab. I think a conversation I used to have a lot in high school when I used to tell people like, yo, I'm not okay, was how can you not be okay? Huchina.
Right.
And for a long time, I did struggle. I did struggle. And I always say the first therapist I went to treated me the same way. Lo never dulang, certain res, only the cheesy hampe, then you're going to come here and complain, hassle, failure, you're not doing well mentally.
No.
I'd never mentioned I was failing. I wasn't failing. I was an A student. Well, one who was struggling with anxiety, And so I don't know what said to me, that I'm still here, but somebody else would have said, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore, right? I'm dropping out, or I'm doing drugs, or I'm ending it, right? Because of how we treat people when we don't hold the space for them to struggle, right? Life is not rosy.
Yeah.
And no matter how privileged you think somebody is, they still have problems, right? They still have certain problems. They may not have the same problems as you, and their problems may not stem from the same things you can think of, but they are problems regardless.
Yeah.
Or na stress is a high se tswa ko hobane ngwana hae ha kena into Harvard, and sa ho se tswa ko ngwana ha ha kena faculty.
Yeah, it's still
Ke
stress.
stress.
Yeah.
And how that person copes with stress is what's going to determine how it's going on. The nature of the stress and where it comes from, we look too much into it.
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah.
Will that person now be less stressed? No, not necessarily.
I think it's an perspective, it's so crazy. Like, when I look at my life, basically, I get to think, man. Sometimes I would even think, sometimes when I struggle, I'm like, man, I don't think nobody's struggling like this,
Yeah.
But because my life in my own lens,
Yeah.
because like why now every time I have to struggle, I have to, and it feels like Hakibona, yes, somebody privileged more than me in certain areas. Man, they must be having it good. Like,
A good time here.
yeah, they must be having a good time. And I don't quite understand why I thought I complete only 1, 2, 3, 4. Because it's wow, man, like they have so many things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
that is such a nuanced conversation because yes, I always speak about myself like, yes, I have a lot to be grateful for. I do. And I never shy away from the fact that I am privileged. It's not everybody who was able to go through varsity without being paid for by manpower, being self-sponsored.
Yeah.
It's not everybody who has both working parents who can support 2 children through varsity.
Yeah.
I get it, right? I get that I am privileged. But also, people are not this one face, right?
Yeah.
We're multifaceted people.
Yeah.
We have different areas of our lives which you can struggle in any of those areas, and it could be detrimental to your mental health. You could be fine financially, but you could be struggling at work. You could be struggling within your family with domestic violence or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when we limit the kind of people who, we're actually saying you don't deserve to be unwell.
Yeah, right.
Because why?
Yeah, why?
And so when we limit that, we're excluding people, right? But we can acknowledge how certain privileges do protect your mental health. We really must not, be about it. Certain privileges do protect your mental health. If you come from a upper class family, you have, you can afford to go to a therapist. You can afford not to go to Motlhome. You can afford to be an inpatient at a facility in South Africa. You can afford to exercise. You can afford to do all these things. So they do protect in a certain sense, right? And we do understand not having some of these privileges does have a detriment, right? two truths can always coexist. Just because people have certain privileges and you don't, kapa, whatever the variation of that, does not mean that either of you's not struggling. You're just struggling in different
ways.
In different ways in different areas. And the source of the stress or the struggle is rooted in different areas. So yeah.
Yeah. So like some of the, I would want to know some of the practical things along people can apply, especially now that you're talking about like our financial differences.
Yeah, yeah.
Or some, you know, now yeah, I might realize, I have a problem, you know, I have a mental illness. Perhaps I get diagnosed or anything because
you're not okay.
Yeah, I'm not okay. Now, like, what are some of those things that I can do? Elonga, they don't have to even cost me so much. Yeah, for me to be well, because I would think, even I don't know even how you used to deal with this thing starts and going back before we even had the specialists, like the psychologists and everything. Naturally, how can I basically, without having to involve so many aspects in my life,
I would say if you are feeling like you can't cope at all, Mohlomi, seek help. At that extent, seek help. When we talk about the things we can do outside of that, it's things you can, yes, try and prevent and try and keep better for stress day to day. But when you are no longer functioning, seek help, right? Seek professional help. Because there's only so much exercising we can do, but that exercising is not going to treat, everything, right? It can help, but it's not going to, I don't want to say heal you, but, heal you in a sense. So you still do need to go see that when you're like not coping. But to like generally cope with life, go outside, touch grass. They were right, touch grass, literally. Open the curtains, let some sunlight in, take a walk.
Then
feel some sun.
Why is touching grass important?
And not literally like touching grass, but like being outside.
Yeah.
Vitamin D. I don't know, like people in like the north, when it's like winter and it's dark, literally suicide increases because of the darkness and the gloominess. So I don't know the mechanisms of it, the biology of it properly, but I do know that taking a walk, just going outside, it does help. Exercise does help. Eat well. Have a balanced meal. Eat your veggies. Eat your vitamins. Eat your minerals. Eat well. Exercise. Journal. I believe in journaling so much. Because sometimes you need perspective. Write it down and read it back to yourself, and you'll realize, okay, maybe things are not that bad, or I see what is happening. It helps you be mindful. It puts your thoughts in order. Sometimes when you're going through something, your thoughts are that jumbled, a lot.
Yeah.
And being mindful, writing makes you put them in order so that you can write them down in a way, right? And when you read them back, you can find solutions. You can find triggers. You can find the cause, because you've now I don't know how else to put it. Literally. So I believe in journaling so much, writing it down and putting perspective. Recently gardening, I don't know, try it, guys. Go to the garden, touch some soil, listen to some music, and do things that bring you joy. Do things that bring you joy. Also sleep. We're not a generation that likes sleeping, hey?
Yeah.
We're on our phones till 2 a.m. You're up at 5. You're going to work. Have your time.
Which is quite so crazy how I mentioned this about off sleeping. I think the moment I discovered that, I was like, whoa, hore, sleeping play a huge role in you being well.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because when you are starting out, especially if you are an entrepreneur, couple you are trying to build something, couple you are a student studying,
Yeah.
you think, hore. And I remember when I was studying in the university, this idea will be clarified. By the meme, it's like ke building it and then there are a couple of windows that are turned off.
Yeah.
The lights are off, and then a
Oh, this
programmer.
one, yeah.
This one, the programmer will be there. It's learning. I'll call the hand people see and then while other people are sleeping. It's
Yeah.
like a create the idea, you know, hore. Yeah, high achievers. Yeah,
They
it's
don't
learning. They don't sleep, and
Yeah.
even sometimes the motivational speakers sometimes they give us that whole
Don't sleep.
don't sleep, you know, and then you get to be like you kind of feel better how you think you are on the right path and you are not sleeping. But I discovered when after hearing that in my life now, when am I actually productive and how do I even show up better? It's when I actually
When you
had
slept
enough
well, right?
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I'm grumpy and then I didn't have much sleep, it's like I don't have much patience to do things. If I want these things to work, I'm gonna be so frustrated and then give up because I want the shortcut because
You're tired.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
So the way I show up, it's kind of different. But idea has been pushed so much.
Yeah, it has, and it's not necessarily. I think it's also capitalism, guys. Capitalism has forced us into these machines. We're always making money. We're always. You have to be quote unquote productive. Rest is like, why are you resting? Are you lazy? You know, you have your full-time job. You have 2 side hustles. You're going to the gym. You have a social life.
Yeah.
When are you sleeping?
Yeah.
How are you showing up when you're not sleeping? I've also noticed it with myself. I thought, oh my God, my therapist was right. I do have to sleep well.
Yeah.
And when you sleep well, you wake up and you're more productive to do the things that you wanted to do last night. So you can do them during the day and you're more productive, you're more alert. And I think I'm nicer when I've slept well. Like, we're nice.
Yeah.
So get some sleep, guys. And I think people must try not to attach their value to the things that they produce. You're inherently valuable just because you were born. Or more to because your value is in the fact that you're a person. Botoba, how is your value? And so when you attach your value to the things you can achieve and the things that you can produce, if you're not making money, then you're not valuable. If you're not achieving, then you're not valuable. Then you run the risk that or they are going to be gone. You know, we might be approaching a recession, you know, all that money might be gone. Are you then no longer valuable of love and being treated kindly and personally, you know, and being somebody being proud of you because there's nothing tangible to show for it?
Yeah. You know, now that you say that, when I, oh man, like, when I get to even think about this idea, I don't know, it's only nowadays, life has been like this all the time. Yeah, when you have something to present to the world, then that's when you are valuable. Like when people can get something from you. Like if you can, if I can show up for my clients every day, then I'm a valuable person. If I can show up for my team every day,
then you're a valuable person.
Then I'm valuable. And also I think now as I get to think about it as a person, I Google those type of words. I'm like, wow, I'm just valuable the way I am. I would want you. I think it might be the thin line there between me just being comfortable and be like, hey man, I'm valuable the way I am, and then I don't have to do anything. And it promotes kind of like mediocrity in the things that I do, because normally in the things that I do, I like to show up better. Like, okay, I like delivering something. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I want it to be like this. So now, how do I get that line?
That line.
Yeah, that line.
I think it's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to want things. It's okay to want money. It's okay to want wealth. It's okay to want good health. It's okay to want to be successful, right? But when you attach your whole value on things that are mostly transient, then how do you feel? Are you no longer valuable? And when something isn't going your way in that area, are you no longer valuable? Are you no longer worthy of kindness and pride and? Are you now deserving you should beat yourself up? Because also sometimes it's not even within your control. I think that is also the other thing about that in particular. We have a locus of control. We have things we can control, right? We have things that are outside of our control.
Right.
And a lot of times when you place value in, your whole value as who you are as a person in, say, academic validation or your job or being successful, you want to be the greatest singer, rapper in the whole wide world. What happens when people don't like your music? What happens?
Yeah,
you can control it. You can put music that you are proud of, right?
Yeah.
You can be proud of the music that you put out and love the music that you're putting out. But what if we're not receiving it? Are you...
So in those type of things, it should be something that comes from within. It's cover the external
validation.
Yeah, because
validate yourself.
Yeah.
Then external validation is nice. I think I'm not saying that it's not nice.
Yeah,
It's
right.
very nice for somebody to tell you, "Oh my God,
you look great."
Listen, but when you woke up in the morning and looked at yourself in the mirror and said,
Yeah.
I look great.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, you look great.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you didn't tell yourself and then nobody tells you, you're confirming.
Yeah.
You're seeking out to confirm the biases you have about yourself.
I think somehow in idea now, but when you start first, let's say you wake up in the morning and then you tell yourself, I'm great. And then it's like you have a cup, a full. And then when somebody says, you look great, and then they say, you look great, you're great. And then it's like overflowing of that cup. It's like, bonus on top of what you already have.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't necessarily have somebody that says that, you would still be good.
Still be fine.
Except except the not or anything.
You'd still be fine. And I also think internal validation, validating yourself and valuing yourself, it sets the ground for the boundaries you're going to place, the things you're going to stand and not stand for, and how you're going to navigate the world. If you believe that you are doing something good and you can do it, right? You feel like you are efficient. You feel like you're good at what you do. You're less likely to give up, right? You're more likely to try things. There's a beauty in trying things, right? You're more likely to try things and learn things because you inherently believe that I can do it, right? I can do it, and I can try to do it, and I can practice. I may not be as good as the professionals, but I can do it. And so it also changes you. It also influences your self-esteem and how you navigate. You know what? I'm not going to stand for this. But if your whole of your validation comes externally, you're going to sit in places that no longer serve you because you want them to validate you. You want to be validated for being imbogod, you want to be validated for being a strong man.
Yeah. Basically, your compass, I think, it's influenced by what people say. When trend I feel
Why?
this one looks good, then why? When this one looks good, you don't have to change just because people are saying. You actually have to listen, but not listening to the inner voice in you now. And I think it's enslaving mindset enslaved mindset you become a slave of what people perceive of who you should be, kapo, who you should be. Like I know when I even think of instances the circles glorify things now I would be like, man, why was I even participating in that? But
Yeah.
just because circling in in a glorifier to be like, if you are if you should have 1, 2, 3, and then if I don't have that, then I don't qualify in that circle. I think also the circles also tell we kinda surround ourselves with. They're also super important because I think they build the very same thing they build a perception, and I would want to know from you, Horana, how do we then build a perception of ourselves to see ourselves as worthy without having to seek that that external validation? How do I then build it in me to be like, okay, I'm good regardless of this and this and that?
For me, and this might be different for certain people. For some people, it might be if like you're Christian, you might, read the Bible and remember, for God so loved the world, Jesus loves you, and. For me, it was going back to the view, ya boto, right, as mut, as kasisotu mut, like, just that view, what it means to be a person, right? And I think in a lot of African cultures, you are valuable because umut, right? And you have different gifts, so to the side of the world, that can then be used for the better of the community and working together with other gifts in the community. So what has helped me is aligning myself to that. You'll come to this world with particular gifts or types of intelligences or whatever that are inherent in you. So, I would say nobody taught me how to write, write a book, write a poem. Nobody taught me. It just was. And I think you need to find traits about yourself that just are. They just are. Because then you're able to say, this is my gift. This is how I show up. This is my purpose, or if you want to call it purpose. And it's inherent in me. You feel whatever you believe in. The universe. That's neither here nor there. But identify that inherent goodness and gift in you, and you realize, well, you have it. You have it, and I think I may be naive for thinking it, but I think each of us have a special thing. That thing that makes you you. I don't have it. He doesn't have it. But that thing it's what allows you to show up every single day and contribute something, right? And contribute something that comes naturally to you. That doesn't have to now cost you an arm and a leg. So I think for me, that helped me is going back to aligning myself with that. You know what? When I was born and I came into this world, I was of value because I was simply born. I'm worthy of the good things because I'm here. Nobody wants to be born to struggle, right? And so I think that could help. But I think generally you can just align yourself with what I guess your belief system is, you know. And I think that helps you also navigate into the hlahang, because you're now aligned to who you are. So if you're Christian, then okay, I have to love love thy neighbor, right, as you love yourself. And you love yourself, so you can, I don't know if, but I'm just saying, align yourself to your belief system. And I mean, remember that you are worthy of it, right? You are worthy of it. I think a lot of times, because we compare ourselves to people, we have ideas of what we should be.
Yeah, we should be.
Yeah, what we should be, what we could be.
And it's so crazy because when we even compare ourselves to other people, we somehow try to look like them, you know? And then it creates the recent thing it goes against the idea every person is unique in their own way. It creates a duplicate. It's like copy and paste. That trying to be somebody else. I think when the recent thing I said, when there is a certain culture in the circle that you're in, sometimes you are bound to try to do things the same way, try to look like this idea, longer you have it. But getting in touch with what you should be, I think it's the most. I think it's something I think I believe needs some work and deep thinking into it, because I think now when we are burdensome to even think deeply about things, it's kind of like uncomfortable to think about certain ideas. Man, like, what is my purpose here? Like, now let's say, for example, when I was young, my mom would often say that in a basic Christmas or whatever, it's like we try to be like, let's say camouflage in the trend at that time. It's like I want regular passwords on my soul, and then I remember I think it was Kavela, maybe, perhaps. And then they were not fashionable at that time. But I remember I hated those shoes. But after and then trending and then now people look cool in those type of shoes, and then it's like all of a sudden it's a these shoes are now available just because they are being trusted by 1, 2, 3 people. So now what she would often say to me, she would be like, why do you always want people to start the trend first? Is so, and I said and she would challenge me in that, and I'll be like, man, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who sets this trend, but it's as if I'm bound to follow. But I can create something, and as long as I feel like it's cool to me, then it's supposed to be cool, regardless of this type of person feels however way about it. And I think as I grew up, I think I've been challenging, trying to experiment with some of the things in my life and trying to do things in a different way. The way longer about why I didn't talk. If people are going this way, sometimes they get about it. It's not necessarily a wrong way, but I would to build my confidence. It build a little confidence when I try to do things different from the way other people do. If get key challenger to be like, I want to start this. If people are going this way, intentionally I'm going to try to go this way. And then try to see okay, what can I find there? Yes, I see that maybe they may be looking at the bigger picture there, but let me try to challenge this thought, couple idea, or we should go the other way. So, yeah, and then I would discover so many interesting things about life, and yeah, that made me to be. It was stubborn in that, but and make my own decisions, not basically being dictated by how other people think I should be doing.
Yeah. It's this conversation is so interesting because at the same time, yes, validate yourself, and at the same time, we're social creatures bound by social contracts and bound by living together in harmony. So even in our quest for individuality and valuing ourselves, community is important. We've survived this long as a species because we lived, in community.
No country is an island. Yeah.
We survived this long because we're able to be in a group, and groups have rules and regulations, and there's an out group for a reason, there's an in group for a reason. It's why I think I'm very, very much empathetic with teenagers. You know how teenagers can be. They want to be friends. They want to be with their friends. They want to see their friends. And I'm like, I get it. I do get it. You just want to be like the people you care about,
right.
And at that stage, they are the most important people, right? But we must also be careful for it not to swallow as whole, and critical thought also. Be able to think, okay, fine, this is what the group is doing, right? But slow-mo, so it's a balance, a delicate balance that I think throughout life we try to balance it. Okay, I'm part of a group. I deserve a community because community is important. It holds you up. It does this, it does this, it does this. But, let us remember, you're also an individual who has their own worth, their thoughts, their views. You can be wrong, you can be right, you can be imperfect. You are imperfect. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
It's balance. Yeah.
Yeah, life is all about balance. I think being followed by Islani, like you're saying, community is so much important. Nobody can live on planet Earth and survive for Alimong, honestly, because we need people. So, like you're saying,
I think
you shouldn't let the group swallow you.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the other important things that help mental health. Community. There's something about having somebody to carry this life thing with you that makes it so much better. Mental illness is extremely isolating. Hangata, we think that you're the only one going through it because it feels like it. When you're going through something, also I'm going right now, but a lot of times, no.
It kind of feels better sometimes. I think not to encourage this, but like basically how to certain problems, then you kind of feel better. But how you feel
it feels huge.
Yeah,
right?
It feels huge.
It feels huge.
Yeah.
It's like I always say, it's different how right now I'm doing distance learning, right? So I'm essentially doing school on my own. School has never been this hard before.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily because it's hard, it's because I'm doing it alone.
Yeah, right.
But I knew, there was somebody down the hall who was going through the same thing I was literally going through. And we could just together complain about school, complain about the institution, right?
Yeah.
Complain about everything and anything that comes with school. And it doesn't feel so big anymore.
Yeah.
And when something now feels less like this huge thing, when it feels smaller, you can see it in your hands. Actually, I can attempt to tackle it. But when it's so big, it's like, I don't have the strength to do this.
Yeah.
The moment you share with somebody and you realize,
Yeah, we kind of going through the same thing.
We're going through the same thing.
Can
Or
tell-
osekila fit and then it feels
Yeah.
smaller,
Yeah.
manageable. Yeah.
Can tell gore e ne tsa la ka bo class ne mo tla fumana gore bo ha re le bo high school we ha vaneng, let's say give money 30%.
Yeah.
And then ke bona batho ba bangwe gore oh re thotse di 30% kaofela somehow.
Yeah.
It's like okay, but ha vaneng ke thotse ke le mong, it feels like man I'm such a, you know, I'm
Right,
such a failure.
right, right.
But how bona oh okay, other people are going through it, but I'm not saying we should be failing and we should be promoting that. No, but
No.
I'm just saying like when you are going through something, it will bona somebody going through it's kind of like okay, yeah, maybe ke life, you know, it's the journey of life. Perhaps it will get fixed along the way.
Yeah, but also I think it provides you a person to help you through the thing, you know. When you share it, you allow yourself to have somebody who's there to hold your hand through the thing. Sometimes people can't solve our problems, you know. Some problems can't be solved. Some problems are out of our control.
Yeah.
But having somebody, it's like, you know, when Olim Manyani and the toilet is outside, right? You know how scary it is going to the toilet at night outside on your own.
Right.
But having your brother or your younger brother or whoever, your mom,
Lie, make
walking with you,
Yeah.
it's not that bad.
Yeah,
The darkness isn't that dark
Yeah,
when you
right.
think about it.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody being brave with you or holding your hand as you're brave. Because just because you're being brave doesn't mean you're any less
Yeah,
scared.
it's
right?
so crazy. Even how I explain that because Lore na omonyane ha kae ho
Yeah,
wena.
yeah.
It's like nakong ha le ntho e ka hlahang, it's not like go e lwantsha.
Exactly,
Anyway,
it's
it's like but the fact that umuntu lo wena not fighting, not being like ninja something.
you know,
you know?
just knowing that there's somebody outside the door who I can talk to, who I can say, "Unzolete," and
Yeah,
they're like,
right.
"Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Yeah,
The
right.
stars are so beautiful."
Yeah.
Lonely, it removes the loneliness of going through something.
Yeah.
And mental illness can be an incredibly lonely time. Like life can be lonely, and so when you have somebody to, you know, treacherous seas and all.
Yeah.
It's good. Somebody to laugh with you along the way. Somebody to say you're doing great. Somebody to say, you know, go on, keep going. I think it's good because sometimes you don't see it. Hey, when you're in the situation, it feels.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody, you know, a community of people, a friend, family, sometimes strangers even, you're like, actually, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important to know that you can, you know. Yeah.
And I think it's also very important. I think you are highlighting it there. You are talking about things. Gore. Now, yes, some problems cannot be solved immediately sometimes. Yeah, but just talking about things, not bottling them up inside you. Man, it can be how you know, if you trying to talk about certain things, you feel like man, perhaps I might be weak for even, you know, thinking about these things. But the idea of talking, even if it's to a stranger, even if it's somebody you don't know, you just met, and then you are sharing about something that is painful or anything like that, you will feel a relief in your heart.
Yeah.
Even if
yeah.
it's not like key therapist or anything like that, or feel like the advice it's saying, but the fact that they were there listening, couple, not even commenting, but by you basically taking this thing out. And I think what you talk about journaling, I think it also kind of like does the same thing. Things you keep in here, they come out somehow. You put them out there, and then you are able to be calm.
Yeah, I would think about how you're not going to win a medal for going through things alone. You are not. if you believe in heaven, nobody's going to place a medal of honor here to say, yes, you persevered on your own.
Yeah.
There are no medals to be won
Yeah.
for suffering on your own, for suffering alone, for suffering altogether.
Yeah,
there are
right.
no medals to be won.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe in other belief systems, but there are no medals to be won by suffering, right? And by suffering alone even, everybody suffers. Some people don't have the opportunity to reach out and the resources, but really when you can, there are no gold medals, there are no winners in suffering on your own, in keeping quiet, in isolation. And I know at the time it feels very counterintuitive to reach out, because you already feel shame on your own.
Right.
You feel an internal shame. Oh my God, maybe I am weak. But I think I've also started to change my view of weakness, right? Like, yeah, I am weak. Then what? My chat is, I am weak. I do need help. I am not strong. I always say to my mom, I'm just a princess. I'm just a girl. I'm literally just a girl.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a strong woman.
Yeah.
I am weak and I do need help. Because we attach weakness like it's something wrong, right? Resilience is great. Having resilience, the ability to bounce back, is great. Having perseverance is great. But weakness is not exactly wrong. Knowing that I'm struggling in this area and this is not my strong suit is not wrong. It just means that there's an area that you need to improve on, or that you need support with. So yes, I am weak. Yes, I do need help. And there's nothing wrong
I think
with
also
that.
it will allow, when you're not trying to be strong all the time, it allow help. It's like, it's the same thing. Like if somebody owns a swimmer on the sea, like all the water, and then owns a swimmer, and then they are drowning. If they say they got it, then they don't need help. If they feel like they are strong, they don't need help. These people by saving anyway, they wait until that person gives up in actually trying to fight for themselves, because they can have an answer basically. They are going to be also drowning because of this person. But now the moment you're like, okay, I'm tired. The moment those people come and then try to take them out of the water. Yeah. So it's like that. It's like I'm strong. Then in that moment you don't necessarily need help. You are robbing yourself of the ability maybe to be helped. You cannot be helped in that moment.
I hear what you're saying, but there are no shame. There are no medals for no medals for strength. I think we expect people to suffer so much just for suffering. For this proverbial rainbow or light at the end of the tunnel. But I don't want to be in the tunnel. I don't want to be in the tunnel, guys. Get me out of here. So it's just one of those things that allow yourself to be helped. Allow yourself to be helped and remove the shame. I think shame, before you feel shame that you're imposed on by somebody else, you feel it on yourself. How do when you feel ashamed of the things that you're going through, of the feelings that you're having? Free yourself from shame. And because people can shame the shameless. Free yourself from the shame that you're struggling. You are struggling. Full stop. The shame, and forgive yourself so that you don't have to feel that shame. Forgive yourself for not living up to these, whatever standards that you feel like you're not living up to. Forgive yourself for not being the person that people think you should be. Forgive yourself so that you don't have to be by the shame. You don't have to be trapped by the shame such that you can't reach out and say, "Oh, I'm not okay. I'm not good." And it's like, it's normal to have some moments where you're like, how smart. then you can get help. But not, wearing it like a badge of honor, your struggles and.
Yeah, they don't help, basically.
They don't help.
They don't get you anywhere.
But
yeah,
you're just wearing them like a badge of honor. And I'm not sure if you're just wearing them as a badge of honor and you're not going through them and going through to the other side if you're building resilience, because there's a difference between withstanding suffering and building resilience, right? You're building your way that you can bounce back, and you can bounce back with the help of others. You can bounce back with yourself. You can bounce back, you can create protective factors that help you bounce back. But you cannot build those protective factors that build your resilience when you're steeping and stewing, trying to win a badge for suffering.
With all that has been said today, that we've been talking about, like, Igor, is there something that you would like us to talk about that we haven't?
No, not really, I guess. But in closing, I can say to everybody who's watching or will watch, you are worthy, you matter, and your mental health matters. You can't be great if you're dead. That might be a bit, strong, but I think what I mean by that is that you have so much. We have so much we can accomplish. We have so much we can see, we can live, we can love, we can experience. And you've got to be here to do that. So take care of yourself. Your job is going to hire somebody in a month after you pass. They are going to move on. Take care of yourself. And there are no first place for suffering alone. Please reach out. Please reach out. You matter, you are loved, and you are worthy of everything that is good that is coming to you. Yeah, you matter inherently. When you wake up in the morning, just know that you matter and you have immense value and untapped potential. You're great. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much
for
today and sharing the wisdom with us and as well as our audience.
Thank you.
Yeah, because these are conversations that they are worth having.
Yeah.
And I mean, Koreke, I always say this: it's the light and then gets the fire going.
I hope I can do that I hope that this has done that for even if it's one person. And even if it's just a conversation. I hope that I have lit a fire to start a conversation that will someday change.
I trust
the
that
world.
It should. It will. It will, because I think how even if it's one person, it's like basically artists they are professional. When it's one person in the stadium, high. If people didn't buy tickets, it's just 3 people, 1 person. Stadium, so it's like it's not a breath wasted. It's like we are honored to have you here and sharing this wisdom with us.
Thank you
very much.
So
and
much.
For people basically would want to follow your work, when can they find you?
LinkedIn, Reatile Polaki, Twitter, Reatile Polaki, Instagram, Miss Polaki. Yes, that's pretty much it. I don't use Facebook much, so that's where you can find me. They must not fret. I might close my account if I feel like too many people are following me because I get anxious. But let's continue the conversation. I'm always willing to learn respectfully and debate respectfully. I think that's where you can find me.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.